Hey friends, I'm Barry. Welcome to another edition of College Sports Corner. Man, what a weekend we had, huh? We had upsets, we had good games, we had games we thought were going to be good that weren't so good. Overall, another good weekend. Like I said, I think this is our reward for having to be put up with that COVID crap last season. Hopefully, this Saturday will be good too. If it stays on track, it looks like it's going to be. So, anyway, hey, if you like this show, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a show. Anyway, let's get started with some news and headlines. Got a couple basketball items. The Maui Invitational is going to move from Honolulu to Las Vegas because of COVID-19 concerns. It's going to be November 22nd through the 24th at the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino. So if you happen to be in Las Vegas that weekend, go check it out. This year the team is going to be Wisconsin, Butler, Texas A&M, Houston, Oregon, Chaminade, St. Mary's, and Notre Dame. So we'll be moving from Honolulu to Las Vegas this year. Also, NCAA is looking to put both the men's and the women's team in the same city. They're looking to start that in 2027. So keep an eye out, see if that happens. Both the Final Fours looking to put in the same city, men and women. Oregon offensive coordinator Joe Moorhead, he had emergency surgery last weekend, so that's why he wasn't at the Stanford game. Don't know if it contributed to their loss or not, but anyway, he was there. Prayers to him. Hope he gets better soon. NCAA Division One Council approved a one-year waiver that will allow teams to sign up to 7 players to replace those left into the transfer portal. So I guess that's good news for teams. Couple of injury items. Maryland wide receiver Dontoy Demus is that how you say? Will miss the rest of the season with a knee injury he sustained in the Iowa loss was a Friday night. And Alabama running back Jace McClellan out for the rest of the season with a knee injury in the Ole Miss game. Hopefully you guys get well soon. Hopefully you'll be back next year if you're coming back next year. Another kind of dumb item here. Just like Arkansas got hit with a fine for fans rushing the field after the Texas game, well, now Kentucky got hit with one $250,000 for fans running out on the field and celebrating. I don't know how you guys feel about that. It doesn't bother me any. I mean, that's their team. Why not? And they just pulled a major upset like that over Florida. I mean, I have no problem with them rushing the field, but I guess it's a safety issue. And the NCAA said, nope, write us a check. So there it is. Okay, Friday's games. BYU 34, Utah State 20. BYU has some pretty impressive numbers in this one. 245 passing yards, 221 rushing yards, and 466 total yards. Running back Tyler Algier had a monster game. Ran for 218 on 22 carries and had 3 touchdowns. Quarterback Baylor Romney went 5 for 15 for 19, 187 passing yards and a touchdown. BYU defense held Utah State to just 31 rushing yards. BYU's really come on this year. I think their first 3, if I remember right, their first 3 wins were all against Pac-12 teams. So they're looking pretty good for a group of 5. Utah State had 314 passing yards, 31 rushing yards, not too good, and 345 total yards. Quarterback Logan Bonner had a good game. He went 21 for 41, 276 passing yards, 2 TDs, 1 interception. Wide receiver Devin Tompkins had 9 catches for 125 yards and 1 touchdown. Being held to 31 rushing yards, snapped a 16-game streak of 100 rushing yards for Utah State. So the BYU defense, they really turned it on in that game. The big one everybody was talking about, Iowa 51, Maryland 14. Hawkeyes came out of the gate on fire. I mean, it was 34-7 at the half. Then they outscored the Terps in the second half, 17-7. Iowa quarterback Spencer Petras went 21 for 30, 259 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. He had a 70% completion rate on his passes. He also rushed for 15 yards and 2 touchdowns, so he had a pretty good game. Hawkeyes defense forced 7 turnovers. 5 of them were interceptions. Terps was they're all fired up. The crowd was all fired up. The media was all fired up, telling us what a great game it was. And then the game started. Tolia Tagovailoa, I still know how to say these guys' last name. Tagovailoa or whatever. Yeah, 50-50 night. 16 for 30, 157 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 5 interceptions in that game. Running game was a dud, only 97 rushing yards for the Terps between 4 running backs. Yeah, quarterback Talua had the most rushing yards at 24. Hawkeyes ended up with 428 total yards, and Maryland ended up with 271 total yards in that Iowa Penn State game this coming weekend. That looks like it's going to be probably one of the best games of the weekend. Houston 45, Tulsa 10. Cougars moved to 4-1 behind great quarterback and running back play. Quarterback Clayton Tune went 17 for 24, 241 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Freshman running back Alton McCaskill ran for 75 yards on 17 attempts and 3 touchdowns. Pretty good for a freshman. Tulsa quarterback Davis Barron had good numbers, 258 yards and 1 touchdown, but he had 3 picks. And Houston's defensive back stopped his receivers from having any big plays. They were just all over him. Tulsa only had 27 rushing yards. Houston ended up with 405 total yards, and Tulsa ended up with 285 total yards. Saturday, okay, one of the big ones everybody was looking forward to. Georgia and Arkansas. I'm not afraid to admit it. The way Arkansas has been playing, I fully expected them to win. I didn't think it was going to be by much, but maybe a field goal or a touchdown. But was I wrong? Just like a lot of people were wrong. Man, Georgia just came out and just blew them. It's like almost like Razorbacks didn't even show up. It's like they just said, "Hey, we're the Razorbacks, we can win," and didn't even bother playing. It was crazy. Bulldogs shut them down on both sides of the ball. Arkansas was held to just 81 passing yards, 75 rushing yards, and they ended up with 156 total yards. Georgia had only 72 rushing yards, but they had 273 passing yards and 345 total yards. Coach Sam Pittman said after the game, this game was a sobering experience. I was like, yeah, I bet it was. Kind of woke y'all up, kind of slapped y'all in the face. Illinois got your second win this season, all right. 24, Charlotte 14. They were losing at halftime. They scored 14 unanswered in the second half to come back. 49ers ended up with 191 passing yards, 81 rushing yards, and 272 total yards. Illinois went 78 passing yards, 332 rushing yards, and 410 total yards. Illini running back Chase Brown rushed for 257 on 26 attempts and 2 touchdowns. So they got it done there. See if they can make it 2 in a row this weekend. North Carolina 38, Duke 7. Man, that would have been a hell of a basketball game, huh? I've said that before. Tar Heels, they controlled this game from the start. Sam Howell played like Sam Howell is supposed to play. 321 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Wide receiver Josh Downs had 8 catches for 168 yards and 1 touchdown. Duke quarterback Gunnar Holmberg, he had a decent day. Passed for 184, 1 touchdown. He did have an interception. North Carolina ended up with 321 passing yards, 134 rushing yards, and 455 in the total yards. Duke ended up with 184 passing yards, 130 rushing yards, and 314 total yards. Temple upset Memphis 34-31. I didn't think that was going to happen, but it did. Their team, they pretty much mirrored each other in the yard category. Tigers had 305 passing yards, 157 rushing yards, 462 total yards. Owls had 322 passing yards, 157 rushing yards, and 479 total yards. They were neck and neck all the way to the end of the game, and finally Temple pulled it out. Another game I thought was going to be a little bit better, but it wasn't. Michigan 38, Wisconsin 17. I thought Wisconsin would give them a game. I mean, it's a Big Ten game, conference game, but it was close until about halftime. Then the Wolverines, I don't know, they just like put some more gas in the motor and just exploded in the second half. Michigan quarterback Cade McNair threw for 197 yards and 2 touchdowns. Backup J.J. McCarthy threw for 56 yards and 1 touchdown, and he ran for a touchdown too. Badgers, they're kind of a mess, offense and defense. They've lost by over 20 points the last 2 games, which is kind of unheard of when you think about it. Michigan had 365 total yards, and Wisconsin had 210 total yards. So Paul Chryst has got a lot of work to do up there if they want to make it to a decent bowl game this year. Minnesota bounces back from that loss to Bowling Green last week, beat Purdue 20-13. Gopher quarterback Tanner Morgan had a decent day. He was 9 for 18, 169 yards, and 1 touchdown. But Purdue quarterback Adrian O'Connell had an even better day. He was 33-51, 357 passing yards, one touchdown, and they still lost after all those passing yards. But oh well. Gophers ended up with 294 total yards, and Boilermakers ended up with 448 yards. All those yards, and they just couldn't get it done. Pitt 52, Georgia Tech 21. Pitt, boy, they're just really coming on, and they might. I'm thinking they might make a run at that ACC title with Clemson. They're kind of in the way now. I mean, I guess maybe they still got a chance. They need some luck. North Carolina, you don't know what you're going to get with North Carolina each week. You're going to get a good team or you're going to get a so-so team. There's a couple others in there. Do you remember years ago on the game day final where Reese, Mark, and Lou would spin the wheel, ACC Wheel of Destiny? Well, too bad they're not on because this would be a perfect season for that ACC Wheel of Destiny they used to do. But Pitt's quarterback, Kenny Pickett, man, that guy, he's one of the best in the country. Every week he's doing something pretty spectacular. Last week he went 23 for 36, 389 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Keep an eye on this guy because if he keeps putting up numbers like that, he could be in New York at the end of the week or the end of the year. That guy's pretty damn good. Running back Israel Amani Konda, I think that's how you say it, rushed for 60 yards and 2 touchdowns. Yellow Jackets quarterback Jeff Sims had a good day, 342 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and he had 2 interceptions, but still his numbers weren't that bad. Pitt ended up with 580 total yards. Georgia Tech had 432 total yards. Tennessee, they put on an offensive show, beat Missouri 62-24. Vols were up by 35 at halftime. I'm really thinking Josh Heupel was the right man. They just got to get a few more players in there. Who knows, may have to make a coaching change somewhere in there, but I think he's going to do some great things there. So good for him. Good for the Vols. Good for you Vol fans. You got something to really be looking forward to. Vols quarterback Hendon Hooker was 15 for 19, 225 passing yards, and 3 touchdowns. He also rushed for 80 yards and a touchdown, so he's a pretty good quarterback. Running back Tyron Evans rushed for 156 yards and 3 touchdowns, so the running game is pretty good. Mizzou quarterback Connor Bazelak threw for 322 but had no touchdowns, and he had 2 interceptions. Vols ended up with 684 total yards. And they really put it on. Texas 32, TCU 27. I watched this game. That was pretty good. It was a game all the way till the end, until Texas finally started walking away with it. Running back Bijan Robinson had a great game. 216 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. It's like every time that guy ran the ball, they had a lot of trouble. TCU had a lot of trouble trying to tackle him. I mean, he was breaking tackles and everything. He's a damn good running back. Quarterback Casey Thompson went 12 for 22, 142 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 pick. TCU quarterback Max Duggan went 20 for 28, 182 yards, and a touchdown. Running back Zach Evans rushed for 113 yards and a touchdown. Texas had 414 total yards, and TCU had 351 total yards. Toledo 45, UMass 7. Poor UMass. Toledo had 448 total yards. UMass only had 157 total yards. Toledo running back Brink Kobach rushed for 82 yards and 2 touchdowns. UMass is one of them teams that got a lot of work to do. Western Michigan 24, Buffalo 17. That's the Broncos' 4th straight win. Quarterback Caleb Elby threw for 279 and 2 touchdowns. They had 475 total yards, and the Bulls had 285 total yards. This game here, this was a crazy-ass game. I mean, all the way to the very last play, Wake Forest 37, Louisville 34. Wake Forest is 5-0 now. Now, remember we talked about the ACC Wheel of Destiny? Can they keep playing like that to, I don't know. I mean, who knows what's going to happen in this league? Like we said, it's crazy right now. But it was back and forth all the way to the end of the game. One would score, the other one would score, the other one would score. But both quarterbacks had pretty good days. Wake Forest quarterback Sam Hartman was 23 for 39, 324 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. He also rushed for 35 yards and a touchdown. Wide receiver Robinson had 6 catches for 135 yards. Wide receiver Marin had 6 catches for 122 yards and a touchdown. Cardinals quarterback Malik Cunningham was 19 for 25, 332 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. He also rushed for 46 yards and 2 more touchdowns. Louisville had 522 total yards. Demon Deacons had 480 total yards. And in case you didn't see it, Demon Deacons scored last, and I believe it was the play right after. I think Louisville had a chance for 1 or 2 plays, or it may have been the kickoff. I forget. I watched so much football this weekend, but they tried the 72 laterals, but back and forth. But finally, it just ended, and Wake Forest came out with the win on that one. Appalachian State 45, Georgia State 16. App State is 4-1. They've always got a pretty good team. Mountaineers quarterback Chase Bryce was 21 for 29, 329 passing yards, and 3 touchdowns. App State had 502 total yards, and the Panthers had 381 total yards. USC 37, Colorado 14. USC quarterback Keldon Slovis was 19 for 29, 276 passing yards, and 3 touchdowns. Wide receiver Drake London had 9 catches for 130 yards and 1 touchdown. Trojans finished with 494 total yards. Colorado Buffalo's 242 total yards. Colorado, they got a lot of work to do. Remember just a few years ago that they were competing for their division in the Pac-12, but I don't know. Something wrong with them this year. Coastal Carolina moves to 5-0 with a 59-6 win over Louisiana Monroe. Coastal Carolina racked up 282 passing yards, 283 rushing yards, and 565 total yards. Now, I've seen an argument online and on TV, which is the best group of 5. Some people are saying Coastal Carolina. Other people are saying Cincinnati. So I guess it's just, whoever your favorite team is, or flip a coin to who's the best there. But I don't know. There's some other ones making BYU. They're making an argument for that, and a couple others. So it's going to be interesting to see what group of 5, how they do. Northern Illinois 27, Eastern Michigan 20. Eagles quarterback Ben Bryant went 28 for 41, 338 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Eagles had 338 passing yards, 39 rushing yards, and 377 total yards. Huskies had 84 passing yards, 242 rushing yards, 326 total yards. Each one of those teams got a little faction they need to work on there. Cincinnati 24, Notre Dame 13. I was one of those ones that said, because Notre Dame, they've been flirting with losing all year. I said, why not this game? Because Cincinnati's a good ball club. So, and luckily they pulled it out, so I was right. So, Bearcats led 17-0 at the half. Irish didn't score until the 3rd quarter. Everything in this game was done in the air. Both rushing games kind of sucked. Cincinnati only had 89 rushing yards. Notre Dame only had 84 rushing yards. Quarterback for Cincy, Desmond Ridder, was 19 for 32, 297 passing yards, and 2 touchdowns. He also rushed for 26 yards and a touchdown. Wide receiver Alec Pierce had 6 catches for 144 yards. Tight end Taylor had a touchdown catch, as did wide receiver Tucker. Irish quarterback Drew Payne was 9 for 22, 143 passing yards, and 1 touchdown. Bearcats ended up with 386 total yards. Irish 341 total yards. And if you saw that game, Cincinnati, those fans made a showing. It seemed like one whole part of the end zone was nothing but red. So they traveled pretty well for that game. Okay, after the big win against Minnesota, Bowling Green goes out and loses to Kent State, 27-20. Both teams are 2-3 now. So I think it's safe to say neither one of those are going to make an impact in that group of 5 race. Central Michigan loses to Miami of Ohio, 28-17. Close game all the way to the end. Neither team led the other team by more than 7 points throughout the whole game. The Redhawks had their backup quarterback, A.J. Mayer, win the game for them with two fourth quarter touchdown passes. Both these teams are 2-3 now, so yeah, they can probably take them out of the group of 5 race too. Florida State, look at that, 33, Syracuse 30. Knowles break the losing streak. It was a tight game all day. Florida State quarterback Jordan Travis threw for 131 and rushed for 113 with one touchdown pass. Um, Orangeman quarterback, he had a good game. Garrett Shredder, he threw for 150 touchdown, and he also rushed for 137 and 3 touchdowns. You know, Russian quarterback there. Syracuse ended up with 389 total yards. FSU had 375 total yards. FSU's got North Carolina next Saturday, so it's going to be interesting to see, again, which North Carolina team are you going to get? Which Sam Howell are you going to get? Florida Atlantic beats Florida International 58-21. Owls quarterback Noah Perry had an outstanding game, 18 for 21, 329 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. He also rushed for 16 yards and a touchdown. Panthers quarterback Max Bartenschlager threw for 263, 2 touchdowns, and had a pick. Owls defense held the Panthers running attack to just 68 yards. FAU ended up with 682 total yards, and FIU just 387 total yards. Another big one, Alabama 42, Ole Miss 21. Another one, I admit, I thought Ole Miss, as good as they've been playing, would go in there and steal one. Didn't happen. I mean, at first it looked like Ole Miss didn't even show up, but I don't know. It was 28-0 Bama at the half, so I assumed it was going to be a blowout, but Ole Miss scored a few points to make it respectable, but I don't know. Ole Miss did outscore the Tide 21-14 in the second half, though. Both quarterbacks had decent numbers. Bryce Young was 20 for 26, 241 passing yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Matt Corral was 21 for 29, 213 passing yards, 1 touchdown. Bama running back Brian Robinson rushed for 171 yards and 4 touchdowns. Rebels came into this game averaging 635 yards a game. Tide defense held them to 291 total yards. So, yeah, what are you going to do, huh? And the whole Lane Kiffin popcorn thing at the beginning of the game, a lot of people are making a big deal about that. I don't know. Nevada 41, Boise State 31. Wolfpack had 263 passing yards, 120 rushing yards, and 293 total yards. Broncos had 388 passing yards, 32 rushing yards, and 410 total yards. Boise is 2-3, and I was wondering if the magic was over in Boise, but a Boise fan pointed out to on Twitter that right now they're in the rebuilding stage. So, and with all the success they've had the last several years, I think they're probably going to be back. They make this year a little bit better than they are, but I wouldn't be surprised next year if they're right back there, fighting for that group of 5 spot. So, have faith, Boise fans. I think that guy's right. You're just rebuilding. Ohio 34, Akron 17. This game was tied at 17 in the third. Ohio scored 17 more points in the fourth to win this thing. Ohio backup Armani Rogers rushed for 83 yards and 2 touchdowns. Running back DeMonte Tuggy rushed for 201 yards and a touchdown. Bobcats outgained the Zips 458 yards to 293 yards. But unfortunately, both teams are 1-4. So, Ohio State 52, Rutgers 13. There are some people that said Rutgers is a good team and they might pull the upset. This was one of those games I figured Ohio State was going to win, and they did. And they led 45-6 at halftime. Rutgers scored in the first and fourth quarter, and that was all. That was it. Nothing in between. C.J. Stroud had a good game, 17 for 23, 330 yards and 5 touchdowns. Wide receiver Chris Olave had 5 catches for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns. Buckeyes defense just shut down Rutgers. They had a pick 6. Ohio State had 333 passing yards, 201 rushing yards, 534 total yards. Rutgers had 235 passing yards, 111 rushing yards, and 346 total yards. This was another good one here. Oklahoma 37, Kansas State 31. Kansas State had won the last 2 in this. And it looked like they might make it a 3, but Oklahoma held on and won. Sooners managed to break the 2-game losing streak to K-State. Spencer Rattler was 22 for 25, 243 passing yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception, and I don't think anybody booed him this week. Tight end Jeremiah Hall had a rushing and a receiving touchdown. Wildcat quarterback Skylar Thompson threw for 320 yards and 3 touchdowns. Running back Deuce Vaughn had 10 catches for 104 yards and 1 touchdown. Um, like I've been saying, we said Notre Dame, they've been flirting with losing all year. And Oklahoma, they've been flirting with losing too. They've had a lot of close games, probably some close games they shouldn't have had. They should have been blowouts. But my personal opinion is they're lucky to be 5-0. And if they screw around this Saturday, I think Texas is going to run all over them. They can't afford these slow starts and playing sluggish throughout the game if they want to win that game. East Carolina 52, Tulane 29. Pirates quarterback Holton Allers threw for 288 yards and 2 touchdowns. Running back Keaton Mitchell rushed for 222 and 2 touchdowns. South Carolina 23, Troy 14. This was a close one all the way to the end. Gamecocks running game was pretty much non-existent. They only had 97 rushing yards. Quarterback Luke Dottie was 20 for 34, 255 passing yards and 1 touchdown. Troy running back B.J. Smith rushed for 103 yards and a touchdown. South Carolina's defense helped them win the game. Defensive back David Spalding had a 74-yard pick six. South Carolina had 352 total yards. Troy had 274. This one here was a shocker to me. Stanford 31, Oregon 24. Just the way Stanford's been playing, and Oregon's so much a better team. I don't know what happened today, but Stanford went in there and got it done. It was tied at 17 in the third. Both teams scored 7 in the fourth, and then Stanford scored 7 in overtime to win. Cardinal quarterback Tanner McKee went 20 for 36, 230 passing yards, and 3 touchdowns. 3 different Stanford receivers had touchdown catches. Stanford defense, they played hard all day, kept Oregon in check. Oregon TDs came on 3 rushing ones. 2 of these came from quarterback Anthony Brown, who also threw for 186 yards. Stanford ended up with 230 passing yards, 124 rushing yards, and 354 total yards. Oregon had 186 passing yards, 228 rushing yards, and 414 total yards. So, I don't know, Oregon. Shouldn't have lost that game, but what are you going to do? Texas Tech 23, West Virginia 20. Texas Tech was winning 17-0 in the third quarter until West Virginia scored 17 to tie it up in the third. Red Raider quarterback Henry Colombi threw for 266 yards. Running back Sir Roderick Thompson rushed for 48 yards on 12 carries for 2 touchdowns. Mountaineer quarterback Jared Doge was 25 for 33, 318 yards and 1 touchdown. Wide receiver Isaiah Esdale had 6 catches for 113 yards and 1 touchdown. Navy 34, Central Florida 30. It's weird saying Navy gets its first win of the year in October, isn't it? Navy was down 30-17 in the third quarter until they scored 17 unanswered in the fourth. Let's see. Central Florida had 178 passing yards, 148 rushing yards, and 336 total yards. Navy had just 58 passing yards, 348 rushing yards, and 406 total yards. Georgia Southern 59, the Arkansas State 33. Eagles scored no less than 10 points each quarter. They had 7 rushing touchdowns in this game, so they got it done on the ground there. SMU 41, South Florida 17. SMU 5-0. There's another team that might have an argument for the group of 5 mix there. SMU quarterback Tanner Morduce threw for 301 yards and 4 touchdowns. Wide receiver Danny Gray had 7 catches for 74 yards and 2 touchdowns. Mustangs had 301 passing yards, 162 rushing yards, and 463 total yards. Bills ended up with 223 passing yards, 113 rushing yards, and 336 total yards. Ball State 28, Army 16. Army's first loss of the year. Ball State quarterback Drew Plitt went 17 for 28, 233 yards, 2 touchdowns. Wide receiver Johan Tyler had 5 catches for 85 yards and a touchdown. Army quarterback Tyher Taylor rushed for 66 yards and 2 touchdowns. Ball State had 233 passing yards, 37 rushing yards, and 270 total yards. Army had 66 passing yards, 216 rushing yards, and 282 total yards. Washington State 21, California 6. Cougar quarterback Jaden De Laura threw for 219, 3 touchdowns, and 2 picks. Wide receiver Calvin Jackson had 6 catches for 53 yards and 2 touchdowns. Okay, this next one here, Kentucky 20, Florida 13. I was on the fence about this one. I thought, to me, it's flip a coin. Kentucky's been playing pretty good football. There's been a couple weeks they didn't play up to their potential, but they're playing good football. They're playing at home. It's a night game. They're thirsty for a win against Florida. But then it's Florida, and Florida's a good football team. So to me, it was just, if Kentucky won, it wasn't going to surprise me. If Florida won, it wasn't going to surprise me. But Kentucky pulled it out. It's a perfect example of team making plays, though, when they needed to. And a little luck went their way for this one. It was a close game the whole night. If you saw it, defense, special teams played a big role in this game. Wildcats' Trevin Wallace returned the block field goal for 76 yards for a touchdown. That really sparked them. Emory Jones went 23 for 31, 203 yards and a touchdown. He also rushed for 63 yards. Kentucky quarterback Will Levy threw a touchdown pass. Running back Chris Rodriguez rushed for a touchdown. Gators could move the ball. They just couldn't finish drives. I don't know what Kentucky defense held strong. Kentucky had 87 passing yards, 137 rushing yards, and 224 total yards. Florida had 211 passing yards, 171 rushing yards, and 382 total yards. So, yeah, I don't know what to say about that game. Like I said, to me, it was just whoever won, it wasn't going to surprise me. So, hey, congratulations, Kentucky fans. Congratulations there, y'all. I guess y'all aren't just known as a basketball school anymore. Stoops has really got this team coming on. North Carolina State 34, Louisiana Tech 27. Wolfpack in a shootout. They almost didn't make it to 4-1. Bulldogs gave them a heck of a game. NC State quarterback Devin Long went 22 for 36, 251 yards and 2 touchdowns. Running backs Pearson Jr. and Knight each had a touchdown as well. His wide receivers Riley and Tootle. La Tech quarterback Austin Kendall threw for 341 yards, 3 touchdowns, but he had 2 interceptions. Another fullback touchdown. James Adams scored a touchdown. Every week we need a fullback. We need a fullback scoring touchdowns. We're having a big game. We need to get the fullback back involved in this game like it used to be in the old days. Those are good old days for the old ground and pound. So all you teams out there, if you don't have a fullback, get one. Come on, let's get them all running. UTSA improves to 5-0 after beating UNLV 24-17. Roadrunner quarterback Frank Harris threw for 278 and 2 touchdowns. UTSA is 5-0 and UNLV is 0-5. Air Force improves to 4-1, beating New Mexico 38-10. Falcons had a ground and pound game going. Running back Brad Roberts ran for 142 and 2 touchdowns. Falcons had 33 passing yards, 408 rushing yards, and 441 total yards. Lobos had 179 passing yards, 47 rushing yards, and 226 total yards. I'm gonna give you an early watch out for Saturday night. Air Force is 4-1. New Mexico is I think they're 4-0. They play Saturday night. Looks like it's gonna be for the Mountain West Conference. I'm not sure if they're in the same division. I have to look that up. But anyway, whether in the same division or not or whatever, it's probably going to be for first place. And they're playing in Colorado Springs, I believe. So if you don't watch it and you're watching something else, just click back over and see what the score is or check it on your phone because that's going to be a pretty good game. Mountain West, they always play good football over there. So keep an eye on that one just to see what happens if you don't watch it. Rice 24, Southern Miss 19. Rice are on a 2-game winning streak. See if they can get another one. Owls quarterback Jake Constantine threw 2 touchdown passes. Rice defense had 4 interceptions in that game. That probably helped them win. Eagles quarterback Jake Lars did throw for 304 yards, so he had a decent game. This was another one I wasn't sure about. Oklahoma State 24, Baylor 14. This is going to be one of those games, put up or shut up games. And I guess they proved it. They were both undefeated, Big 12 matchup, so it was a pretty big game. Cowboys defense have been playing good. They haven't allowed more than 23 points per game. Quarterback Spencer Sanders went 13 for 23, 182 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions, though. Running back Jalen Warren ran for 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. Wide receiver Troy Martin caught 7 passes for 108 yards. Get this. Baylor punts on their first 8 possessions. First 8 possessions, they punted. That's crazy. Their offense, they stalled most of the game. They really couldn't get anything going until they finally scored a touchdown in the third quarter. Quarterback Larry Blandon threw for 178 yards and no touchdowns, but he did rush for a touchdown. Running back Abram Smith had 97 yards on 10 carries and a touchdown. Baylor was ranked number 6 in rushing offense entering this game, but I think that's probably dropped after this week. Baylor's ended up with 285 total yards, and Cowboys had 413 total yards. Iowa State 59, Kansas 7. Cyclones were up 38-0 at the half. Brock Purdy went 17 for 22, 245 passing yards, and 4 touchdowns. And running back Breece Hall ran for 128 and 2 touchdowns. Their offense is really getting going. I know it's Kansas, but hey, it's a confidence booster. All those putting up all them numbers. Kansas had 1 rushing touchdown. Jayhawks had 302 total yards. Cyclones had 564 total yards. And don't sweat it, Kansas. Basketball season is just 30 days away, so you only got to put up with a couple more weeks of this before, and then you can start celebrating your team kicking people's asses every week. So, Liberty 36, UAB 12. Liberty had 544 total yards. UAB had 272 total yards. Flames quarterback Malik Willis threw a touchdown pass and rushed for 2 TDs. This one here, man. A lot of you know I'm an Aggie fan, so Mississippi State 26, A&M 22. I don't know what to say about this game. Aggie's O-line is horrible. The quarterback play is horrible. And okay, I'm still trying to figure out this whole Jimbo Fisher, his 4th year, that they've been shoving down our throats since January. Yeah, I know he won in the 4th year Florida State won the national title. It's like everybody automatically thought he was going to do it here too. I mean, I was hoping. I'm sure all the other Aggie fans were hoping, but they were shoving that down our throats since January. Probably got most of us to believe it. Me being a longtime Aggie fan, I'm optimistic. Like beginning of the season, when I see where we're ranked at, I'm like, let's just hold back a little bit, all right? Let's hold back. I've just been an Aggie fan for too long to fall into these traps, but I think a lot of people did. So, quarterback Will Rogers for the Bulldogs threw 408 yards and 3 touchdowns. Wide receiver Mackie Polk, I think that's how you say his name, Polk, caught 13 passes for 126 yards and 2 touchdowns. Aggie quarterback Zach Calzada threw for 135 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He did rush for a touchdown. But, man, I don't know. They just stall out here and there, and they stall out when they shouldn't be stalling out. It's just, I don't know. Hell, I know we're going to lose this week to Alabama. I'm going to be honest about it. I mean, it is what it is. Middle Tennessee 34, Marshall 28. Blue Raiders quarterback Chase Cunningham threw for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. Running back Chayton Mobley ran 15 times, 132 yards and a touchdown. Reed Blankenship picked up a fumble and ran it 91 yards for a touchdown. Good hustle there, buddy. Herd quarterback Grant Wells did throw for 321 yards, so a little good news there. Clemson barely avoids a 3rd loss, beating Boston College 19-13, only by 6 points. Eagles were undefeated. They racked up 357 total yards. Their ground game was bad, though. They only had 46 rushing yards. Quarterback Dennis Grosso threw 311 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, so I'm sure that didn't help any. Running back Pat Garwa had the lone rushing touchdown. Tigers running back Kobe Pace rushed for 125 yards and 1 touchdown. And B.T. Potter hit 4 field goals. So, there you go. One for the field goals that may not have won. They've now won 11 games in a row over Boston College. And this is the 2nd year in a row Boston College almost beat them. And I think last year they only lost by 6 too. So, maybe next year, Eagles. You never know. Clemson had 438 total yards. BC had 357 total yards. Yeah. I guess say good luck next year, Boston College. Maybe you'll do it. Let's see. Penn State 24, Indiana 0. You know the way Indiana's been playing this year. That to me, they haven't been playing to what I was expecting them to play after the last couple of years. So I figured this game would be a lot worse than 24-0, but for some reason it was 24-0. Sean Clifford threw for 178 yards and 3 touchdowns for Penn State. Wide receiver Jahan Dotson caught 8 passes for 84 yards and 2 touchdowns. Nittany Lions defense forced 8 punts, 2 turnovers, and a blocked field goal. Hoosiers defense played good in the first half, but the offense was bad. Penn State ended up with 408 total yards, and Indiana ended up with 264 total yards. Nebraska, beat down Northwestern 56-7. It's like I've been saying, Nebraska's a good team. Their mistakes and their penalties are just what's killing them. So I hope if they get that cleaned up, they can have a pretty decent season this year. Wildcats scored 1 touchdown in the first quarter, and that was it. That's kind of a trend this week. There's a lot of teams that scored either in the first or the fourth, and that was it. That's all they wanted to do, I guess. Cornhuskers scored 21, 14, 14, and 7 in all 4 quarters. Nebraska quarterback A.J. Martinez was 11 for 17, 202 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and he also rushed for 50 yards and 3 touchdowns. Getting that old famous Nebraska quarterback stuff going again. Running back Ramir Johnson rushed for 74 yards and 2 touchdowns. Northwestern Ryan Helinski threw for 256 yards and a touchdown. Wildcats had 293 total yards. Cornhuskers had 657 total yards. Vandy 30, UConn 28. This game everybody was talking about. People there are some reporters on Twitter saying, "Storm the field, Vandy, do it." But I don't know if they ever did. I didn't watch that game, but anyway, second win. UConn is 0-6 now. Huskies have 505 total yards, and Commodores have 439 total yards. I mean, if you can get all those total yards like that, then why aren't you scoring? I mean, why aren't you winning the game? I mean, that's just nuts. Both quarterbacks have decent games. UConn quarterback Steven Korjowski threw for 265, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Vandy quarterback Ken Seals threw for 333 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Husky wide receiver Kalen Marion had 4 catches, 102 yards, and 1 touchdown. And Vandy wide receiver Will Shepard had 8 catches for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, congratulations, Vandy. You got your second. UConn, UConn basketball season's fixing to start up. So, you'll be cheering, kicking somebody's ass, I'm sure, here in the next month. This one here kind of surprised me a little bit. Michigan State 48, Western Kentucky 31. I don't know if Michigan didn't take Western Kentucky serious or what, but they scored. Hilltoppers scored more points than I thought they would for sure. Sparty was up 45-16 in the third, and I thought that would keep increasing, but it did by a field goal. Quarterback Peyton Thomas was 20 for 30, 327 yards and 1 touchdown. He also rushed for a touchdown. Running back Kenneth Walker rushed for 127 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jaden Reed had an 88-yard punt return for a touchdown. Hilltopper quarterback Bailey Zapp threw for 489 yards and 3 touchdowns. Wide receiver Jarrett Stearns had almost 200 yards receiving and a touchdown. Spartans had 521 total yards. Western Kentucky had 557 total yards. I mean, the Hilltoppers, they got playmakers. I guess Michigan State defense just shut them down when they had to. So, Louisiana 20, South Alabama 18. Raging Cajuns scored all their points in the first half, and that was it. Take a nap second half, sit around, picnic, whatever you want, whatever we're going to do. That's all we need. Louisiana moves to 4-1. Jaguars move to 3-1. This one here. Auburn 28, LSU 19. I was like, LSU came out on fire, and then that was it. That's good enough. We only need to play mediocre the rest of the game. It's like LSU came out on fire, then they froze up the rest of the game. Auburn was frozen in the first of the game, and then they went on fire the rest of the game. It's like totally opposite going on there. Bo Nix, the guy scrambled all over the place. looked like almost like Johnny Manziel, and they were missing LSU was missing tackles left and right. I was like, oh my god, y'all can't get in. He's right there, and I think he had missing tackles. The guy was running all over the place. He threw for 255 yards and one touchdown pass. He also ran for a touchdown. I'm guessing getting benched in that game the week before may have lit a fire under his ass or something because he played a pretty good game. Running back Jarquez Hunter rushed for 80 yards and a touchdown. LSU quarterback Max Johnson threw for 325, one touchdown and one interception. Wide receiver Kayshon Boutte caught 6 passes for 127 yards and a touchdown. LSU rushing game is pretty much non-existent. They like barely have one this year, and it's crazy when you think about all the good backs they've had over the years. They're horrible in the red zone. Auburn's total yards were 418, LSU 362 total yards, and to add injury to insult, was it Stingley? Is that his name? Defensive back. He's going to be out. Another defensive back. They're going to be out. I think it's for the rest of the season with injuries. So not only do you lose 2 good players in the process too. UTEP 28, Old Dominion 21. Minor quarterback Gavin Hardison threw for 191 yards and 2 touchdowns. Monarchs quarterback DJ Mack threw for 194 yards, 1 touchdown, and he ran for a touchdown. UTEP is having a damn good season this year. And Washington's back to the way Washington was at the first of the year. They lose to Oregon State 27-24. Beavers running back BJ Baylor ran for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. Huskies running back Sean Matthew rushed for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns. Washington had 318 total yards, and Oregon State had 290 total yards. Arizona State 42, UCLA 23. Arizona State, they're 4-1 now. Herm Edwards really got them guys coming on. UCLA gave them a good game in the first half, 24-23 at halftime, but that was it. Sun Devils outscored 18 unanswered points in the second half. Sun Devil quarterback Jaden Daniels threw for 286 and 2 touchdowns. Running back Rashard White rushed for 69 yards and 2 touchdowns. Wide receiver Ricky Pearsall had 4 catches for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. UCLA quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson was 21 for 32, 235 yards, and 1 touchdown. ASU had 458 total yards. Bruins had 446 total yards. San Jose State 37, New Mexico 31. New Mexico State 31. Spartans quarterback Nick Nash was 14 for 17, 195 yards and 3 touchdowns. Tight end Derek Deese had 7 tackles, 130 yards and 1 touchdown. Running back Tyler Nevers ran for 115 yards and 1 touchdown. Aggie quarterback Jonah Johnson threw for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. So not a bad game for him, except for the 1 interception. Wide receiver Isaiah Garcia Castaneda had 90 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Spartans had 394 total yards, and the Aggies had 385 total yards. All right, here's one that caught me off guard. Hawaii 27, Fresno State 24. The way Fresno's been playing this year, I really expected them to go into Hawaii and just beat them down. Hawaii, they're okay. They're so-so. They're not a great team. So, watching this game, I was really shocked. I figured Fresno would just go in there and just totally annihilate them, but it didn't happen. Because they're up 24. Bulldogs are up 24-10 in the third, and Hawaii scored 17 unanswered in the fourth. Quarterback Brayton Sager went 11 for 27, 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. Running back Calvin Turner rushed for a touchdown, caught a touchdown pass. Bulldog quarterback Jake Henner threw for 387 yards, 3 touchdowns, but he had 4 interceptions. Wide receiver Zane Pope caught 5 passes for 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. Hawaii racked up 348 total yards. Fresno State racked up 510 total yards. Bulldogs dropped to 4-2. Season started off promising, almost beating Oregon, but they kind of dropped off a little bit. Hawaii is now 3-3 after a bad start to the season. Remember that first game, they got beat down by UCLA, but looks like they turned things around, and looks like they're going to maybe have a pretty good season. I know they still got I gotta look at the schedule, but they may still have to play Air Force and Wyoming, who are very good right now. So BYU probably, because I think they always play BYU every year, but I don't know. I gotta look at the schedule. Uh, that's it. Things got a little messed up this week. My work schedule changed. I was originally going to do this show last night. Uh, couldn't do it, so I said, well, I'll just do it on Wednesday. But tomorrow, I'm going to do the weekend preview tomorrow. And it's probably going to be like that now. Like I said, my work schedule changed. I'm going to try to do the review on Monday night, if not definitely Tuesday nights. And then on Thursday, we'll do the preview. We'll go and get the Thursday night game in and all that. So anyway, that's it for now. Hey, like I said, if you like it, tolerate the show, whatever. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers. Tell them that while they're doing work in their office, they can put this show on and they have something to listen to over here in the background while they're over here doing work and looking good for the boss. Anyway, hit the subscribe button. And like I said, make a show preview tomorrow. Anyway, you have a good day tomorrow, good day at work, whatever, and we'll see you tomorrow.